I'm going to tell you a secret. But before I do, I think it's only polite that I introduce myself because my parents always told me it's kind of rude before I talk about myself for 10 minutes. So I deserve a proper introduction. I'm Wes. I'm a student here at Babson College, a junior. I'm from a small town called Sharon, Massachusetts, where I live in the same house my entire life. I have two siblings who love me unconditionally and hate me conditionally. But besides that, I have a dog named Bentley, who is named after the car, I promise, not the school. But overall, I have a family that loves me unconditionally and encourages me to act outside my comfort zone on a daily basis. Now, you ready for that secret? I have extreme social anxiety. More specifically, performance anxiety. I get really nervous. My hands get really sweaty. I get really bad BO, and situations like these don't really help. And I always wondered, after 21 years of life, why do I get so nervous? What am I afraid of? And the answer is change. You see, I realized I was born in a world that is perpetually changing. In the 1990s, I believe the world positioned itself to progress into a whole new era. Take IBM, for instance. 5 years before my birth, IBM committed one of the largest changes this world has ever seen. In 1993, in 1 year alone, they laid off over 60,000 people. 60,000 lives changed right before their eyes, and they didn't know what to do. I mean, to them, they thought a job was guaranteed. You would go to college, you would graduate, and work for the same company your entire life. But for them, their world seems to change forever. And I felt like I could relate to them because I didn't really know what to do either. So I became obsessed with the question as to what do human beings do when they're faced with change? Do they cry? Do they run? Do they do what Rocky Balboa said in that movie, which I did not see, but I put in this talk for purely educational purposes? And do they get hit, get knocked down, get up, and keep moving forward? Whatever that means. But I really became obsessed to find that answer. So I thought I had two options. One, I could Google the answer like most millennials do, or I could look myself in the mirror and ask some tough questions. I chose the second option. But to be honest, I found a very dark and bright truth. Like I mentioned before, I suffer from social anxiety. I get really nervous. And people think who've had it, they've had it their entire life. But for me, I really had it when I was 12 years old. I can trace it back to a summer afternoon. I was outside playing basketball with my best friend. I thought I was Michael Jordan himself. I jumped from the free throw line doing this weird acrobatic move before falling flat on the ground. And when I got up, I had a cut on my right knee. And over the next few weeks, that cut did heal, but it left a white scar in its tracks. And my mom, being the caring, compassionate mother she is, she didn't tell me to put this in this TED Talk. She took me to the hospital. And I remember sitting in that waiting room, confused as why I was there in the process, the whole process. And I told my mom, black folks get white spots too sometimes. But she didn't believe me. The doctor came out and he took me into a room and put me on a table and he looked at my knee and looked at me and he said, "Son, you have vitiligo. There's not really a cure for it, but we can try some alternatives." And that's all I really remember. I looked at my mom and she didn't have a single expression on her face. Neither of us knew what was going on. But upon further research, we found that vitiligo is a skin condition which causes white spots to appear on the surface of your skin. And by the end of that summer, that is exactly what had happened to me. White spots had appeared on my hands, my feet, and my mouth. And they became so noticeable that by the time I started 6th grade that year, my friends took notice. And I earned every name such as Michael Jackson, Oreo, and Leopard Boy. My entire world changed right before my eyes. But you see, looking back, I had two options. One, I could change my mindset, or I could allow the spots to define me as the Leopard Boy or Michael Jackson. I chose the first option. But I realized I'm not the only one that does this. In fact, I bet you can too. Through looking at stories like Malala, I was able to realize the only way we really can confront change is by embracing it. And for those who don't really know the story of Malala, she's a Pakistani girl who fights for the rights of women pursuing an education. And the reason why this is a problem is because when she was in 12th grade, the Taliban raided her village and made everything illegal from books to music. And even worse, they made it illegal for women to pursue an education. As a response, Malala spoke out. But unfortunately, this made her an easy target. You see, one day, when she boarded a bus on the way to school, masked gunmen came on her bus and shot her in the head. And after months of recovery and a long time of surgeries, she woke up with two options. One, she could allow being shot to define her whole future. Or another thing, she could change her mindset and use being shot as fuel to continue the fight for women to pursue an education. And I don't think if anyone knows this, but Malala did not live a quiet life. You know, she has gone on to inspire millions of people while earning a Nobel Peace Prize in the process. And I believe the only way she was able to do so is through embracing change. I mean, you see the same thing in sports, right? And as a kid, growing up idolizing sport legends and sports greats, I really believe they have the greatest life lessons to offer. And when I say the greats, I'm not talking about Michael Jordan or Larry Bird. I'm talking about the greats who never really make it onto the field in the first place. Because I believe they offer the greatest life lessons. Take Icky Johnson, for instance. Icky Johnson was an all-star football player out of the University of Tennessee. And to him and everyone around him, he was going to go first-round draft pick in the NFL draft. But on his last college football game, he took a hard hit, causing his whole right arm to become instantly paralyzed. Now, Icky could lay down and stay down, or he could stand up and do something about it. And today, he inspires thousands of people to embrace change in their daily life. And trust me, we didn't talk before this talk. But to be honest, I believe Malala and Icky were onto something. They teach us the only way we can really confront change is through embracing it. Because we can run, but we won't get very far. We can cry, but I'm sorry, no one really cares. And we can hate it, but we only hate ourselves. So the only way we can really face it is by embracing it. Because I believe the changes we go through make us multi-dimensional or unique. And I have friends who ask me, hey Wes, how did you get over your spots? I don't even see them anymore, they tell me. And I tell them, I don't see them myself. But to be honest, I can't take all the credit. I guess I did change my mindset, but I can't take all the credit for that. No, one summer I met this friend who single-handedly changed the way I see my spots. We were washing our hands in the bathroom, and I was trying to hide my hands to avoid the one question I did not want to be asked, but he asked it anyways. And he said, "What's wrong with your hands?" And I said, "Black folks get white spots too sometimes." He didn't get the joke. But you know what he said to me? He said, "I think they're pretty cool. I think they make you unique." And ever since that day, I changed the way I see my spots. I don't see them as ugly things. I don't see them as handcuffs that held me back from doing the simplest things of having a conversation. No, I see them as tools to build up my self-confidence. And ever since then, I've done things such as speak on a national level. I've gone to Machu Picchu to hike. I've done the craziest thing of starting a business that inspires people to be their true selves unapologetically. I call it the hidden. And that's when it became clear to me. Change may break you. It may knock you down. It may cause you to cry. But change will never define you. So I challenge all of you to go home today. And when you see change, don't run. Don't cry. No, stand firm and just let it fuel you. Thank you.